Welcome everybody. My name is Paul Keneally. I'm from the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, and we're here today to celebrate a number of cross-cutting events. Particularly today is International Volunteers Day, and volunteers are of course at the heart of the Red Cross Red Crescent movement, but it's also a special day because we will announce a major international campaign starting in 2009 jointly with our colleagues from the International Committee of the Red Cross. I just would like to start with a very brief historical background. 150 years ago, almost, in Solferino, in 1859, Henri Dunant, the inspiration for the Red Cross and Red Crescent movement, mobilized a number of villagers in Solferino to tend the wounded and the sick on the battlefields. It was this act, this impartial act, and this inspiration for volunteerism which brings us to the current day, a very strong worldwide movement which embraces all cultures and all diversities, and which today counts at more than 100 million volunteers. Today, many of our national societies, Red Cross and Red Crescent national societies, are battling and tackling their own Solferinos, the humanitarian consequences of climate change, migration, urban violence, internal conflict, just to name a few. On the podium here today to elaborate more on the fast-changing world that we're in and the challenges that we face, we have the Secretary General of the International Federation, Mr. Bekele Geleta, and we also have Ms. Madeleine Helmer, Director of the Federation's Climate Centre. Without further ado, I would like to hand over to Mr. Geleta to speak more about the campaign ahead and about the challenges that we are facing going forward. Thank you.
Members of the press, ladies, gentlemen, colleagues, it is a pleasure to be with you in Poznan today to discuss one of humanity's greatest challenges, climate change. Climate change is caused by the sum of human activities everywhere, and it is only by mobilizing collective human action that we can solve it. This is the effort of all of humanity. In that spirit, the Red Cross Red Crescent will launch a global campaign in 2009, calling the world to act with a common call to action. Our world, your move. We chose to announce our campaign today in Poznan because 5 December is International Volunteer Day, and it is the hundreds of millions of volunteers that reach every corner of the globe that are helping people adapt to the consequences of climate change. I speak on behalf of the millions of Red Cross and Red Crescent volunteers, but I do not limit my praise to them. We are honored to highlight the work of all volunteers worldwide. As Secretary General of the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, I see firsthand the millions of volunteers that reach every corner of the globe. Every day they remind us of what a true hero is, the unsung champions of humanity dressed in emblems of protection, the Red Cross and Red Crescent, volunteering every day to provide needs critical to survival, from the immediate response to disasters to the long-term needs of health education. Most importantly, they work within communities to empower vulnerable people so that they may live dignified lives without the need for foreign assistance. International Federation of Red Cross Red Crescent Societies is the formal representative of national Red Cross and Red Crescent societies all over the globe. Over the past 90 years, we have organized a global network of volunteers from Nebraska to Namibia. All over the world, the Red Cross Red Crescent is mobilizing the spirit of voluntarism and turning it into the reality of volunteers on the front lines. In Myanmar and Zimbabwe, when no other organization could operate, our volunteers were lining up by the hundreds and thousands to help people in crisis. Today, long after many other operators have left, our volunteers are still doing the work. What does it mean to be a volunteer for the Red Cross Red Crescent? It means celebrating the spirit of humanity. It means walking the last mile to help a neighbor or a stranger in need. Many of our volunteers are often also our beneficiaries. In spite of their individual needs, they put personal gain aside to reach a greater good. Our volunteers live the very community they serve. They are there before, during, and after a crisis. In that spirit, the Red Cross Red Crescent is launching a global campaign calling the world to move under a common call to action. Our world, your move. Each and every one of us need to act to solve a world in unrest. But the spirit of action cannot be achieved without an unprecedented sense of urgency by all humankind. Our time is now. Climate change is the global financial crisis, HIV and AIDS, emerging and re-emerging health issues, overcrowded cities. These are issues that directly threaten human security. We are a world on the brink, and we must work together to bring it back. We need, from countries rich and poor, to focus on prevention. The Our World, Your Move campaign takes place in a fast-changing world. Recent crises related to finance, energy, food, and climate must be considered as symptoms of unpredictable and unstable times. Our message must remain consistent. We can no longer look at the crisis in isolation. We now face a globalization of crisis. CNN recently reported that the Maldives would vanish in the next 100 years, the first country to disappear in the wake of climate change. Maldives is an island in South Asia. This is one of many national issues that can affect regional economies and exacerbate other humanitarian challenges such as urban violence, migration, and the proliferation of disease throughout the globe. We can talk about the suffering of millions left in perpetual hunger, of lands vanishing through the glint of a collapsing and increasingly troubled world, or we can choose to rise above the dialogue and act. I have spent more than 20 years working with groups we call the vulnerable. But it is their strength that gives me the hope to carry this message to you. On the eve of 2009, I ask all of you to join us by the simple act reaching out to your neighbor in need, or you are a global volunteer. Today, we do not ask for your dollars. Money is a critical part of the solution, we know, but on this day, we ask you to surrender your doubt and embrace this global effort. Support us by helping your neighbor in need. Help us by reaching out to that stranger who needs an arm to grab while pulling themselves up. Our world, your move. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Secretary General. I'd like to now hand the baton to Madeleine Helmer from the Climate Centre. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you very much for being here. When we look at the future that climate change brings us in, and the crisis that we may face, and the crisis that we have already seen in the past number of years as a kind of indication of what is about to come, it's clear that volunteers will have a crucial role to help out in people. I would like to name a few to illustrate what comes ahead as examples of the million different situations locally and nationally, regionally that will come across. I think one example that maybe is on top of mind of many of us are heat wave risks. What we've seen in Europe, not only in 2003, but also in 2006, 2007, is that there's, in a very short time period, millions of people are suddenly at risk. The elderly, who will need to be care of. There's no way a professional healthcare system can do that. You will need volunteers to take care of an elderly neighbor who will to monitor whether she, often a she or a he, will need is drinking enough, is cooled enough. It's a very simple act that saves lives. That's the kind of volunteerism that we'll need when we know the risk of heat waves is going to increase. Another example I would like to give is highlighted that the risks of diseases like dengue are likely to increase in urban areas in Asia and in Latin America and maybe in other places as well. And we've seen the first alerts in the last year in Bangkok, in Rio de Janeiro and other places. There's no cure for dengue. So you will need volunteers to go out and educate people what to do to reduce the risks that they will be bit by the mosquitoes who will transmit this disease. Another example is the increase of floods that you will face. A good example we've seen a couple of years ago in Romania, where not one flood, but 5 floods in a row hit the country in a short time period in 2005. Now, with the first flood, it was not difficult to mobilize the volunteers. We had trained. In fact, they were eager to go out and demonstrate what they had learned and help out. The second flood was okay as well. But with the third, the fourth, the fifth flood, it was more difficult to mobilize them because they had other actions to do at home, to take care of their families and jobs. So that also illustrates that we'll need more volunteers to be ready for the severity and increased of disasters that we are going to face in the short time range to come ahead. So that is why we are here also to call on that aspect of change that will need it in the light of climate change. Of course, financing is crucial, and it's clear that when a new risk is coming, adding up to the constraints we're already seeing, we will need, and it has to be organized in a well-organized way, we'll need substantial additional resources. What we'd like to illustrate here is that alone will not solve the challenges we have ahead. And it's good news in a way as well. It's not bad to be a volunteer. It's challenging. It's rewarding to help out. And this is also a sign we give that in the light of difficulties we will see, but that we can't escape from climate change in the coming decades. The situation will deteriorate in a number of situations. But the good news is we can address it. We don't turn our backs to it. We help out each other, help our neighbors, and can make a difference for ourselves and for the people around us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madeleine. If there are any questions from gathered journalists, I will go directly to a TV clip exclusively, which we have just rolled out in the last minutes, which will be broadcast all over the world as in from today, as we roll out this campaign globally with the ICRC throughout 2009. Thank you. By way of conclusion, I'd just like to summarise that this global campaign which will start is very much about harnessing the power of volunteerism. As we speak here today, Red Cross, Red Crescent volunteers are on the front lines tackling cholera in Zimbabwe, HIV/AIDS in Central and Eastern Europe, the destruction left by earthquakes in China, and the floods and mudslides in Brazil. Our thoughts are with them today, and it is our hope and our earnest will that the volunteers of the Red Cross, Red Crescent movement will be further empowered, will be further trained and given capacities to deal with the unprecedented humanitarian challenges that we are facing in today's world. We can take questions offline afterwards and directly with the Secretary General, but I'd like to leave it there for now, and thank you all very much.